We're going to just do the iPad, no board today.
Well, hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Happy Half Hour here on this, the 5th of November.
Yeah,
Time
caught us a little
flies.
off guard. Amy was fast with that today.
That's
We still
right.
have a few minutes before we are officially starting, but hey, so Dad, what's going on with you today?
Well, I'm just actually a lot's going on. Does anybody out there recognize this guy here? Does anybody out there recognize who this is? In fact, you can type into the chat if you recognize who I'm holding up. Let me get the chat up. Um, by the way, a reminder for those of you who are joining us to click on share and start a watch party if on Facebook. Go down below, click on share and start a watch party, and we will and that'll go out to your friends and they'll know to look at it too.
And
But
if you do that, let us know and we'll enter you into next week's wine drawing.
that's right. They're actually filming a TV show literally behind our building and the building right behind us. They've taken over our parking lot and there's movie stars roaming around and this is one of them. And
He's one of those guys that's been in everything for years.
he's been in everything for
Yeah.
years. And what's the name of the movie, TV show, Sam? You know, they're filming
It's called Hightown.
Hightown. So this is he's from Hightown. Anybody know who this is? Type it into the chat. And Amy will transmit it to us by text or so this is sort of what's new for us. I've got them all around. I mean, they got more trucks and generators and wires and a big production doing a movie,
Yeah.
So and we see that I see that Jeff's here.
Hey,
And
Jeff.
Patrick and Brad.
Pat. And hey,
Bill. Yeah.
And Carol Ann and
JP. Hey, JP, how you doing over there in Compass Point? Mary, our own Mary is here. George.
And Miranda. Hey, guys.
Yeah. So Sam, I don't know if we're getting, well, there's probably a 2 or 3 minute delay. We'll go. What are you drinking today, Sam?
So today I am drinking, this is a Torrontés from Argentina. So it's high altitude vineyards. It's just really nice and refreshing.
And I'm back to my herbal tea. Those of you who were here last week when I was broadcasting from my kayak up by the cabin in Uwari and we're drinking whiskey finished in Tabasco bottles. It sort of did remind me by the end of the half hour why I better stick with this instead of, hard liquor.
You were having a great time out there in that kayak though.
We're going to actually see it here in a moment because I got some follow-up stories here.
Ooh. Hey, Rich and David and Rick and Mike and Margie. Welcome, y'all. Thank you for joining us. I hope that everyone is enjoying this, pretty nice little cloudy Thursday, but from where I'm sitting, it's a really beautiful evening, kind of warming up again.
Yeah, it's another nice day. So I don't know if anybody has gotten this. Sam, who is this? You know who this is?
I can't remember. I already got out of his name. He's the guy. He's one of those guys that's been,
Luis Guzman.
Luis Guzman. This
He's
is
from
Luis
Shameless.
Guzman, who
He's
is
hilarious.
literally
he's been in Traffic, the movie Traffic, the movie Boogie Nights. If anybody did, I don't know if anybody watched Narcos, which was an excellent series. He was in Narcos. He's one of those guys that's been in everything. I immediately recognized him.
Well, now he's in our parking lot, the very parking lot that many of you will drive through as we do our drive-by pie day coming up here.
Yeah. And we've got Ed and Renee. Thanks for joining us, guys. And Dave and Pat, they've got their mining equipment ready.
Oh, good.
Talk about the precious metals.
That's right. We got we're going to have a good time today. So, In fact, so Sam, what is our topic today?
Our topic today is gold. Should you
Oh,
have it? Why does
okay,
everybody
well,
keep talking about it? Is it an important part of your portfolio?
yeah.
But I thought you were going to show us a picture of that fish that you caught before we dug into
I
everything.
am, but let me go in and bring up the let me bring up the magic iPad so I can
Okay.
uh, kick this in. So with any luck, everybody is seeing my iPad screen, and today's topic is gold. A lot of things about gold, and I wanna kind of start by saying, look, this is not meant to be a formal dissertation on gold investing advice. This is sort of this is meant to be more entertaining. Gold is a very complex thing, more than we can handle in half an hour. But I think when you'll come away from this with some new insights, okay? But just from a compliance standpoint, this is kind of a light view of gold here.
Okay.
But we're going to start before that. We're going to remind you that last week, this is where I was broadcasting from. This is
Yeah,
the
right from
Uwharrie
the
River,
kayak.
Uwharrie River in the Uwharrie Forest up near Troy, North Carolina, near Albemarle. And I was, of course, took some time out from fishing there in the boat to talk to you. And what's interesting is literally the next evening, jigging a 3-inch gulp on a little jig on ultralight tackle in this pretty much the very spot we're looking at there. I caught this guy. This is
Wow.
about a 34-inch channel cat. So not to
Wow,
brag,
man.
but when you do catch a big fish, it's kind of like nice to bring it out and tell everybody about it. So this is again the Uwharrie River and some of the things that are there. So, but
It's a
we're
nice
going to go
fish.
on from there, and
Okay.
we're going to talk about gold a bit, because everyone asks me, should I buy gold, and how should I buy it, and what should I buy?
How much should I buy?
How much should I buy? And I'm going to give you some views. Let's start, like I often do, by looking at some numbers, okay? And what we have here is we kind of have the I've gone back to November 1st of 2010. I've gone back 10 years from today and say, where would you be if you had put money in the stock market versus putting money in gold? And the blue line here is the stock market. And you may not be able to see it here, but if 10 years ago you would put money in the stock market, it would have gone up by about 167%. Okay. This gold line here on the bottom is what gold would have done over that time period, and gold would have made 34%. So from 2010 to 2020, you'd have been kicking yourself if you said, man, I'm taking all my money out of the stock market and putting it in gold. Okay. Let's go back another 10 years. Let's go back and see what the world looked like from 2000 to 2010. So I took that 10-year period. Well, if you'd, and actually, I think, what I did is, well, we're starting here in 2005, actually, rather than 10 years. But if you had bought GLD in 2005, in those 5 years, it would have gone up 146%. If you bought gold in 2005, it had gone up 146. If you had bought the stock market, it would have been down 17%. So largely over the decade before, you were way better off buying gold than stocks. And so it kind of tells you, wow, boy, it kind of depends. It's certainly not a consistent thing. Well, then what I did is I say, let's go look at the price of gold over time. And this is a graph I kind of plucked off the internet. They seem to be updating it regularly. Again, you should go before you make any buying decisions, you should get reputable sources. But the red line is the price of gold from about 1960 to 2020, and it's inflation adjusted. So it's taken into account inflation over that time period. The black line is the raw price of gold. And you can see, boy, here in 1980, both the inflated amount and of course the regular amount shot way up. I don't know if any of you remember that, but back in that time period, we had the Hunt brothers. Remember, they were cornering the gold market. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but there was that time period when the silver market, they were cornering the silver market. That also seemed to have driven up the price of gold. So again, it's a commodity, and commodities can be manipulated, and the Hunt brothers managed to manipulate it, you can see, in a big way. Then the price fell, bottomed out here, came back up, and there we were up to about 2,000, and then we dropped down to less than almost 1,000, and now we're kind of back up again. You look at this and you say, boy, sure looks like a lot of things are driving the price of gold up and down. And if you're going to play this game, you need to understand what they are and go back and forth, just like you might if you were playing the stock market. Perhaps it's even worse, because a stock market is kind of depend on a company's integrity and marketing and things that you can predict, and gold is influenced by so many things. But I think I said last week, go print out the price of gold over time and you'll understand why it's way trickier than you think. So.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, next, I want to take you back to 1978.
Wow, I've never seen this book before.
No, you haven't.
No.
Do you know, maybe can you figure out, Sam, why 1978 was an auspicious year for me? You know what I did in 1978?
Oh man, well, it wasn't when I was born, so it couldn't have been that important.
No, it wasn't. That's right. Good answer.
Oh, did you start a 401k?
1978 is the year I graduated from Cornell, and I went down the road and worked for Corning. And I had a little apartment in Addison, New York, and I can still picture. A lot of times I connect things with places.
Okay. And
I can still remember sitting on my mattress on the floor, because until Sandy and I got together, I really kind of never really bought a bed. It just didn't seem logical when you can just put a mattress on the
furniture,
floor.
From what I understand.
Yeah,
there's a lot of cinder
that's
blocks
another
propping
topic,
up,
topic for a time when I'm drinking something besides tea, Also in 1974, Andrew Tobias wrote this book, The Only Investment Guide You'll Ever Need. He's come out with new editions not that long ago, but he was a well-known, very kind of a sexy writer, made things interesting. And I remember reading this book, and one of the pieces of advice he gave in this book was that you should put 5% of your money into gold. And he said you should do that in case there's hyperinflation. Okay, and I distinctly remembered that all these years, 5% of your money into gold in case there's inflation. Well, this began to drive home, when I worked for many years in engineering, management, consulting, and highfalutin, stuff and all that. And then I moved into this industry that stuck with me. And then I came across in 2011, this article. Now, universities have endowments. They got a bunch of money that people have given to them, and they've socked it away, and and the biggest endowment in the country is, of course, Harvard. At least in 2011, the second biggest endowment was the University of Texas. Now, the people also managing these endowments are usually really, really good. They're really smart because, you know, they're paid a lot of money, and some of them have performed very well. And in 2011, the endowment for the University of Texas was $20 billion. And they had put basically $1 billion into gold. Not only did they put it into gold, they put it into gold bullion. And they had the gold bullion stored in New York City. They had it in a vault in Manhattan somewhere. There's a place where they had the gold stored. And guess what? That happens to be 5% of their portfolio. And they did it as what they call a hedge against currencies.
You said you said it was a vault. I kind of picture you going down this, like, you know, underground tunnels, you know, dark underground tunnels.
It was in the basement of some banking building in Manhattan. There actually is a vault where they store gold. They didn't buy GLD. They actually put it into physical gold, and they did it as a currency hedge. We'll talk more about what that means, but that's kind of what it means, is if the currency collapses, your gold is going to carry you. Okay, 5%. Now, what's more interesting is I've been watching this over the years. This is an article from I think just about a year ago, and Texas has now, the state of Texas has built their own Fort Knox, their own gold depository with $100 billion capacity in the state of Texas. And they have repatriated the $1 billion in gold from the University of Texas to this depository. So not only does the University of Texas have 5% of its gold, in 5% of its endowment in gold, it now has that endowment in the state of Texas. And this, by the way, is a little snippet from the Facebook page for the Texas Bullion Depository. So, you know, for what it's worth, I find it kind of amusing. But, you know, we're going to talk a bit about the two ways and the two reasons to buy gold and what it means. But you can see here one, you know, very big and well-managed endowment has bought physical gold and has even brought it close to their heart, if you will.
Imagine, you know, imagine if $1 billion was only 5% of your wealth.
Yeah. I guess you know,
It's pretty,
well, you know, Bill Gates, it's probably even less than that, but that's a whole other story, you know.
After your first billion, it's easy, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one thing about gold. Now I want to go look at the value of gold. And I want to look at the long-term value of gold. We looked at before how it went up and down in this decade. And when it comes to long-term value, one guy who's done a really good job at it is this professor. He's here from Wharton, and he is a professor of finance, Jeremy Siegel.
Oh, we see him all the time on pick your news channel. He's one of the most common guest commentators to come on and talk about.
He has a really good publicist, and he does a lecture circuit, and he wrote a book called Stocks for the Long Run. And you know, we saw him recently, didn't we, Sam?
We did. We had a great opportunity to see him back when we could travel.
Those were the days, yeah.
In I think July of 2019 in downtown Chicago. Right in
and that's actually him on stage there in downtown Chicago. And he shared some data with us. And this data here is really interesting really interesting data from, in fact, let me go to White. This is interesting data. He went back here, if you can see it, to 18, oops. He went
1802.
back to 1802. And he looked at, if you bought a stock for $1 in 1802, what it would be worth. If you bought bonds, bills, and gold in 1802, what it would be worth. And this is fairly recent, updated 2019. So this is pretty recent. The interesting thing here, and I don't know how he did it. You can read the book, but he's, again, generally pretty well versed. If you bought a stock for $1 worth of stock in 1802, it would now be worth $1,467,000,000. So it went up by 1,500,000 times. Okay. And again, if you bought bonds, it would be worth $1,750. If you bought bills, it'd be treasury bills, it'd be 265. But look at this, gold would be worth $3. So $1 worth of gold in 1802 would have gone up to $3 now.
Wow.
And you can see that gold stayed pretty flat over most of that time. But here's some questions. Get your hands on the keyboard because I want to see if we can get some answers here today. And I'm going to give you a chance to answer. You notice that gold was real steady here for all these years, but right about here, and this is 1913, you see it's dropped. We started to see it waver.
Okay.
Type in if you know, and Amy will chime in for us, what happened in 1913 that might have upset that price. And then we saw another change here in 1933. We saw a jump. Type in if you know what happened in 1933. The biggest change occurred here.
We have
in
some people chiming in.
1971. Pardon?
We have some people chiming in.
Okay, so what are they saying?
Well, David said the Federal Reserve Act.
Okay, very good. He wins the prize. 1913 is when we created the Federal Reserve. How about 1933? Who knows what happened in 1933? And we have a delay between when I say things and when it occurs. So
I'm waiting to see if anybody answers. Oh, let's see.
1971.
Michael said the creation of the Federal Reserve System.
That was 1913.
Okay.
So this is the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
This is the Federal Reserve. What did we do in 1933? Anybody know? I'm going to show you something in a minute.
Jeff said 1933 would have been the start of World War II.
No, that's
Michael,
not that may be, but it's not the answer I'm looking for.
Michael said outlawed bullion.
Very good. In this case,
Okay.
we outlawed bullion. You could no longer own gold. Everybody had to turn their gold in, except for some old coins.
Yeah.
And also we changed the price of gold from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce, thereby devaluing the dollar. What happened in 1971? And now I know a bunch of you were alive in 1971, although to be honest, I don't really remember, I was, 10th grade or something, but but anybody know what happened in 1971?
Both Brad and David said that we went off the gold standard.
We went off the gold standard. We would no longer redeem, they called it the Nixon shock. We would no longer redeem dollars for gold. Prior to this, you could go to a bank and say, here's another country could go to a bank and say, here's my dollars, give me gold. And we took it all, we went off the gold standard, and you can see how it varied from there. So let me go back and we squeeze this back down. And one other thing I want to show, and we're running, taking long, always goes faster than I think. This is the same graph, but now we've included what $1 would buy. What's interesting here, and this could actually be another happy half hour. If you're interested in this, let me know. You notice from 1802 to about 1913, the dollar didn't change much. The price of a loaf of bread in 1802 and the price of a loaf of bread in 1912 would have been the same. There was no inflation before we created the Federal Reserve. Something people don't realize. We all think inflation is natural and we should always have some of it. But we built a pretty darn good country throughout the 1800s. We became kind of the world leader without any inflation, you know, but we did have a lot of crazy currency ups and downs. That's another story. Maybe if you're interested in the history of inflation in the US and what it all means, we could do one of those. Type in, let me know if that's of interest.
I'm interested.
Then you can see the dollar dropped to 47 cents, pretty much just over since 1913. So that's another little interesting tidbit that came out of this. Okay, now 2 reasons to buy gold. And this is kind of my general philosophy, not an official philosophy. One reason you buy gold is you want to speculate. You're treating it like a stock. You know it's going to go up and down, and you're going to add it to your mix, and you may move in and out because it's
Is it just diversification?
Diversification and asset allocation. And you know, the other reason you want to buy gold, and in this case, you can buy an ETF. You can buy something like GLD and play this, you know. But the other gold I call parachute gold, and I liken it like this: if you're on a plane and the engine's cut out, and you're the one with a parachute and you jump out, you're probably going to land more softly than the people that didn't have a parachute.
I would imagine.
Gold may serve a purpose if the currency collapses, that if you own gold, you will have some wealth preserved. Arguably, that's what the University of Texas is doing, putting some money into gold. One of the reasons they may be doing it.
Is gold typically correlated with the market?
That's more than we can get into in this. Generally speaking, it's correlated to many things: the market, commodities. You could kind of say when people are really worried about the market, gold goes up. But then we saw it went up when they manipulated the price of silver. So there isn't a real clear correlation for gold like there are many things. I'm going to answer a little bit of that in a minute. So
Okay.
One is parachute gold. If you want to do parachute gold, if you want to do the market, you can buy GLD, you can buy an ETF. GLD is an ETF for gold. Theoretically, they have enough gold in vaults in Europe to cover that. Although there's some questions about that, it gets sort of interesting. But the thing about GLD is you can't go to the vault and say, here's my shares of GLD. I want you to give me the equivalent ounces of gold. That won't happen. So if there's a currency collapse, and if you listen, you know, I don't believe this is going to happen. I'm not condoning it, but if there's blood in the streets and turmoil and unrest, GLD shares ain't going to do you any good, may not do you any good. Okay. So that's one way to buy gold. The other reason you buy
GLD would be good if you wanted to not, to diversify.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to show everybody in a minute how that works. I got to keep going because I don't want to run over.
All right.
One way that works is one of our portfolios is a company called Milliman. It is one that looks at the market and moves in and out. And it's got US stocks and real estate and bonds and foreign stocks, but it also has gold. So I've got the data on what it did all the time. So I went there and I said, what did it do over time for gold? This is 2017. This is the percentage of gold in the portfolio. This is 2018. This is 2019, because I know you can't really read it there.
Yeah.
And this is 2020. They made a lot of changes in 2020, but they actually rode the dropout very well. I'm not going to talk about performance here for this, but it was really impressive. The highest places where they owned over 20% gold was at the end of 2018. If you remember the end of 2018, that's when we had a market crash.
Yeah.
You know, the other time was right here in March of this year. Gee, anybody remember market problems in March of this year? Right now, they got less than 1% gold. So Milliman, this is actually a algorithm run by computer that moves in and out, and you can see it's varied from 1 to 27% gold. You know, this to really play it well among the people that play it well, this is what it looks like over a 3-year period. I'm not sure, unless you had an algorithm that's smart, you could do as well with this. So a little sidetrack there. Now, if
that was not the performance, that was the proportion.
That was the proportion of the portfolio that owned gold. They were moving in and out. Thank you. I make sure I'm going too fast, but if you want to own real gold, you know, you own real gold if there's a currency collapse. The Weimar Republic in Germany between World War I and II. This is where the money was. You're flying kites, burning it, using it for toys. The more recent hyperinflation is in Zimbabwe. This is the third Zimbabwean dollar history. In August of 2008, if you wanted to buy a US dollar, it took 17,000 Zimbabwe dollars. A month later, it took 590,000, 2 million. You can see by November, it took 699 billion Zimbabwe dollars to buy a US dollar. Now,
I have never seen this before. That is wild.
It gets better. If you think about trading 1 US dollar for 699 billion Zimbabwe dollars, what are you going to do with them? And this is sort of an interesting piece. This is toilet paper only, no cardboard, no cloth, no Zim dollars. So literally it got to the point where I just found this kind of amusing, you know? So one of the reasons you might want to own gold is you might say, well, I just kind of want to have some actual gold so that if God forbid the worst happens, I have something to preserve. That brings you to another question. Do I buy coins or old coins or new gold?
Is that the 1933 or before?
Yeah, we could spend half an hour on it. There's the coins, some collectible coins before 33, before 34 are collectible. The big thing is you can buy them, and since they're currency, the purchase and the sale is not recorded. So, you know, the trouble with the old coins is a lot of telemarketers and people will sell them to you at a premium way more than it's worth. And so people tend to overpay for these things. You can also buy new gold, and that's more than we can get into now, but you can buy, you know, little coins, big coins, bullion, things like that. It's a little tricky buying gold. You want to make sure you're using a reputable source. We have a person we've worked with for years that when people want gold, I steer them his way. He is someone that I believe will give you a fair price and such, but you always want to do your due diligence. But I have had clients that have come in and bought gold coins from someone else and got sold into paying a premium, and later on they found out they got taken. So
are you recommending new gold to old gold?
I think so. I mean, my recommendation is, you know, if you're buying old gold, you better be really careful what you're buying. You want to make sure that the weight in old coins and the weight in new gold is pretty close. You know, this is the order where they confiscated the gold in 1933.
Wow.
So you know, again, and if you do buy gold, you can keep it in a safe deposit box, but some people don't want to do that. They put safes in their house. You can even buy canisters that you can bury in the backyard. Comes to a whole other world. And I personally don't think we're in for a, giant collapse. But if people ask me, how much gold can I buy? My answer is, you can probably buy up to 5% and you're not crazy. If you're putting more than that in, you're probably listening to too much AM radio or listening to those. You've got on the phone one of those telemarketers. And, here's the thing. If the US dollar crashes, we are the reason we get away with what we do is we are the world's reserve currency. If that ends, and someday it probably will, nothing lasts forever. I don't know whether it's 2 years, 20 years, or 200 years. What's going to come up? Is it going to be the Renminbi, which, by the way, most of us know as the yuan? That's the People's Republic of China, their official name of their currency. Could the euro take over, or perhaps it will be Bitcoin? If you're interested in a Bitcoin, happy half hour, let me know.
We already have somebody who wanted to.
Yeah, that's another one. The thing about Bitcoin and blockchain is it's not so much that it'll replace our currency. It has the potential to replace our banks. So I'm already over. Sam, let's go on and get the drawing done. And I need to trim these. I probably could have squeezed this into 2 presentations. I try to.
That's the problem, is that the half hour goes by real fast.
It goes by real fast.
So fast. All right. So for everybody, I know that we're running over, but it is time for our wine drawing. So every week you can get entered into our wine raffle, where we deliver 2 bottles directly to your house from Fermental, which is a great bottle shop in Ogden. And all you have to do to enter is reply to one of our emails, send us a potential question, potential topics, or just, reply to it, or refer our happy half hour to a friend and let us know. All right. So our winner this week.
Ooh, she's got a new thing to draw it out of.
It's, I was consistent before, but now that I've moved around so much, I just don't, it's whatever I can find. Is Rick and Marcy. So congratulations, Rick and Marcy, you have won our wine this week.
Well, congratulations. I was just talking to him this past week or so. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Amy will be in touch and we'll get you 2 bottles of wine shipped directly to your door.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we're sorry that we ran a little bit over this week, but we may, Dad, I think that it might make sense for us to, I think we had some really good questions come in. So maybe next week we can have a chance to answer a few of those.
Yeah, I think either that or next week we may do elections and stocks and what it all means.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying we should do a whole nother gold day, but I'm saying,
yeah. See if we can squeeze. Yeah, maybe we can squeeze some of them in next week. You're right. And so with that, everybody, cheers.
Cheers.
Happy half hour. We will see you next Thursday, 4:30.